Thus, we propose to establish a system in which a product grown in Nevada, processed in Nevada, and sold in Nevada for personal use will be taxed by Nevada.
The product Assemblymember Joe Hogan wants to tax is marijuana. His bill would decriminalize the drug for those at least 21, taxing growers to buyers, with the money going to education.
Creating, finally, once and for all, an effective Nevada Educational Enhancement Trust Fund.
But critics say that funding could be taken away by the federal government.
Is federal law changed? Did I miss something here? My understanding is it's still against the law on the federal level to do this.
But supporters of the bill telling a committee of lawmakers legal pot would bring tourists into the state. Law enforcement groups say what the bill proposes is dangerous.
Is marijuana a gateway drug? I don't know. But the majority of hardcore drug abusers have used marijuana.
Well, it's now the legislature considering decriminalizing marijuana. It's something the voters have also considered.
You want this body to act on something that the people have said no to.
Nevada voters have approved the use of marijuana for medical reasons, but have rejected recreational use of the drug, most recently in 2006 and in 2002 before that. Reporting from our mobile newsroom in Carson City, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.
As I passed him, he grabbed me from behind, forced me down to the cold, hard asphalt, placed a pistol to my temple, clicked off the safety, told me not to say anything, and then he began to brutally rape me. The attack on Amanda Collins in the University of Nevada Reno parking garage lasted 8 minutes, but the ramifications of the assault will last a lifetime. That night in 2007, James Bila, now a convicted murderer and rapist, had a gun, and although Collins had a permit for a firearm, she was prohibited from having it on campus. Being a law-abiding citizen, I left my permitted weapon at home, and the very law that was meant to ensure my safety guaranteed James Bila an unmatched victim. Collins is recounting that terrible night to a committee of lawmakers, urging them to allow concealed weapons on college campuses. But critics of the idea say it could have the opposite effect, making campuses less safe.
Inherently, college students, not you that evening, but do drink. And they do fight with their girlfriends and boyfriends.
The main concern that kept reoccurring during these discussions was the ability for residents and student staff to effectively manage conflict that often occurs between the residents, with the possibility that those residents may be armed.
Some students are pushing for the ban to remain.
Allowing students to carry weapons on campus is not only unnecessary, but could also interfere with the trained emergency response team's reaction.
But Collins says if she had been armed when she was attacked, it would have made all the difference.
I would have been able to stop my attack while it was in progress, and consequently, 2 other known rapes would have been prevented. Another bill lawmakers are discussing would create a tax on guns and ammo to pay for health and victim services. Reporting from our mobile newsroom at the Statehouse, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.
The medicine calms my bowels down. It helps me with nausea, and it helps me to feel good about myself so I can do a little bit more in my house.
Tracy didn't want to have her face shown. She says she went through the process to get a medical marijuana registration card from the state of Nevada, allowing her to grow a limited number of plants.
You have to plant them seedling by seedling.
In addition to being difficult to grow marijuana in the desert, Tracy says she worries about safety.
There's a threat, if your neighbors see that you have medical plants and, you're in jeopardy of being robbed.
So she says lawmakers ought to approve a bill creating and regulating marijuana dispensaries.
A lot of cities are experiencing benefits from the taxation.
Reno City Council member Jenny Breckus recently joined council members in opposing the dispensary bill, but at the same time is urging Reno to be ready for the possibility.
And my strongest desire is that the city not have their head in the sand. If the legislature green lights these, we need to get our zoning ordinances and our business license regulations in place.
All they have to do is go to a doctor and they get prescribed. That's what's been happening. It's been abused like crazy.
Washoe County District Attorney Dick Gamick says many ending up with the medical marijuana don't really need it. And he says dispensaries don't make a lot of sense.
Why aren't we doing this through the network of pharmacies we have in this state now? If it is a legally prescribed medication, why aren't we handling it through them? Why do we need to go to all the expense and trouble to put all these dispensaries in? I don't understand that one at all.
Most of my math centers, which is over here, I bought puzzles, notebooks. They're working on their second notebook.
Take a tour of Ann Knoll's classroom and you'll find plenty of materials she paid for herself.
Usually it's between $900 and $1,200 a year.
That much?
Yes, that much.
Ann isn't the only teacher spending a lot at Sierra Vista Elementary School.
They don't even keep receipts.
Principal Jonna Acoin says teachers spending their own money is typical.
There's just so many necessities that we don't have, and they want their children to have it, they want their students to have it, so they pay with their own money.
Ann Knoll says she can get about $250 back on her tax return, and now the legislature is considering reimbursing teachers up to $100. But Senate Bill 240 proposes taking the money from the state's general fund, and it's not in the governor's proposed budget. Still, Knoll says she'll keep on spending.
For the kids. And you don't have to have all the extra stuff, but it really enhances their learning and their experiences of the world.
Teachers say if they didn't spend money out of their own pockets, all the supplies you see here would vanish. The bill has some bipartisan support. It's expected to next be considered by committee. Reporting from our mobile newsroom in Reno, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.
Now serving H455.
The Nevada DMV is a busy place, handling about 7 million transactions a year. David Farrow says he hopes if lawmakers add more work by creating immigrant driver's privilege cards, they'll also add more funding. If they don't give you more resources with this bill and this requirement goes through, what does that do to the lines and the wait times here at the DMV, which are already sometimes pretty significant?
Well, obviously that's always the bottom line, is if you have additional work added to your workload and you don't have resources, then that means your wait times increase.
Under the proposal, documents from other countries could be used to be issued a card. Immigrants would also have to prove they are residents of Nevada. Still, some say those living in the country illegally should not be rewarded with legal driving rights.
Well, because first of all, people are illegal, and of course it's a privilege to drive in this state.
Proponents of the bill hope it will reduce the number of people driving without insurance.
I don't think that's the largest problem that we have. I haven't seen or heard of anything like that.
I think it's a good idea that they have a ID. They're probably already driving anyway. So have an ID, have insurance.
Reporting from our mobile newsroom in Carson City, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.
Obviously, this is emotional for me. Not only did my son Brighton lose his sister, he lost his only sibling, and the family unit that the three of us had created.
Brianna Dennison's aunt, Lauren, reads a letter from Brianna's mother to lawmakers. Brianna Dennison was murdered by James Bila, a serial rapist. He had been arrested before, but no DNA was collected. If it had been, and put into a national database, a DNA sample from an assault about a month before Brianna was attacked could have led investigators right to Bila.
If Brianna's law had been in place, it is possible that Brianna would be alive today.
Nevada collects DNA from convicted felons, but Brianna's bill would collect DNA from anyone arrested accused of any felony. Certain markers from DNA would then go into a national database.
It will solve unresolved crimes. It will exonerate those who need to be exonerated.
The bill didn't make it out of the last legislative session, and concerns remain about how to pay for DNA processing and whether the collection violates the constitutional protection against unreasonable search and seizure.
We believe that this law goes against the fundamental American principle that you're innocent until you're proven guilty in this country.
Supporters say half the states have similar laws, but one is being challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court with a ruling due in a few months.
The Supreme Court might uphold part of the law, but not another part of the law, so I do think there could potentially be some litigation.
In the case that the United States Supreme Court is currently considering, a man was arrested accused of pointing a shotgun at someone. His DNA was collected, and that sample later connected him to a rape. Reporting from our mobile newsroom at the legislature, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.
Everybody should have the right to have an equal opportunity
to achieve their dreams and goals.
Assemblymember James Healy is one of the lawmakers sponsoring Senate Joint Resolution 13. It would remove the wording defining marriages between a man and a woman from the state constitution. Healy says attitudes on marriage equality are changing and says there's a greater understanding of the issue even among some of his own family members.
Ever since I came out, they have been very loving towards me, even though they have extreme conservative views. And one day at the Thanksgiving dinner table, we talked about it. And I said, you know, my brothers, they have 1,200 laws and rights that I don't have.
Nevada voters in 2000 and 2002 decided to define marriage as between a man and a woman in the state's constitution.
I'm of the old Christian belief that a marriage is between one woman and one man.
John Wagner is chair of the Independent American Party.
Inheritance and living wills and that type of stuff, and I don't have a problem with that. But when it comes to defining marriage, I think it should remain exactly the way it is now.
To change the Constitution, lawmakers would have to approve removing the marriage definition this session and again the next. Then voters would also have to sign off on the idea. Healy says this time he's confident voters will make a different decision than 11 years ago.
Once that conversation is had, I think people understand, wow, this doesn't affect my life, this doesn't hurt my life. But wow, it certainly has affected and hurted the lives of those in the LGBT community.
A federal judge recently upheld the state's constitutional definition of marriage. Senate Joint Resolution 13 will be heard by a committee here in Carson City on Tuesday. Reporting from our mobile newsroom at the legislature, Joe Harrington, KOLO 8 News Now.